Hello out there in internet land, this is Phil Lamington here from the F1 Chat. Recently we recorded an episode, which was episode 23 of the F1 Chat concerning the Mexican Grand Prix. And because I'm clumsy, at the end of the episode I ejected the memory card from my multi-track recorder and forgot to save the episode, and it was thought to be lost. So, we re-recorded the episode, which was effectively called Take 2, and thought, that's the end of it, that's the episode. Until I put the memory card in my computer to copy the files over, to which we found the lost episode sitting right there on the memory card. So we had a dilemma, which was, do we use the original episode, or do we use Take 2? In the end, we decided to go with Take 2 because we felt like it was snappier and got to the point a lot quicker. But we still retained the audio from Take 1. This episode you're about to hear is Take 1. It is the original episode. It's the call it the director's cut version. We decided to release both versions, with this one being the bonus episode, so that you can see the difference between a regular episode and us refining it and cutting it down and trimming a lot of the stuff, because frankly we'd already done it for an hour and we kind of wanted to get it over and done with again. So we hope you enjoy this director's cut, also known as Take 1, of the episode 23 of the F1 Chat.
To the limit, walk along the razor's edge.
Hello out there in internet land. This is episode 23 of the F1 Chat. I'm your host, Phil Lamington. Sitting to my left is a man who's insanely happy that his driver, who everyone's been crapping on all year, actually came good for a race. And that is JB. JB, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Danny Rick, our boy, pushed it to the limit.
Pushed it to the limit, walk along the razor's edge.
That's it. That was Daniel Ricciardo for those last 21 laps.
And gave us something to watch.
Just absolutely balls to the walls that outdrove Lando Norris for the first time all year.
He was outdriving everyone.
He outdrove Lando Norris. He outdrove everyone now. All it needed was that 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
To light a fire under his ball sack, and he pushed it to the limit.
And to my right is the man who has invented the push it to the limit dance in honour of Daniel Ricciardo, and that is Longhorn. Longhorn, how are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good, despite having to watch you look after your tyre simulator 2022. Thank God we did get Daniel Ricciardo to give us something in the last 20.
Yeah, it was almost like it was 50 laps of procedural, and then Danny Rick comes alive.
Yeah, to be fair, it was like 71 laps of procedural until Daniel Ricciardo found the push it to the limit button, And off he went.
Found the Push It to the Limit song.
Pushed it to the limit.
And then we were doing the dance to go with it. You know what I'm going to do, though? I'm going to film us doing the Push It to the Limit dance.
So everyone
put it up.
knows. Yeah.
Put it up on the end of season special as the Push It to the Limit dance. So on the YouTube version of the episode.
Everyone understand what it is when you push it to the limit.
Yeah, and then we'll be able to make references to it.
You got to
all
zoom in
next
real
year.
close, and I'm gonna be real intense when I'm doing it.
I'll get you an 80s sweatband.
Yeah, it's got to be a proper montage.
Like the bit in the movie
Yeah.
Scarface.
Yeah.
Right, so yes, we just watched the Mexican F1 Grand Prix.
Yes.
And for 50 laps, this was just a procedural bore.
Yeah,
And
it
then-
wasn't, unfortunately, that's what it's like for Formula One sometimes. It can't always be 2021 Abu Dhabi. Sometimes it's
And then
2022
just-
Mexican GP.
Danny Rick comes alive. Like, he took out Yuki Tsunoda. Let's call it spade a spade. He did take him out.
He did. He completely took him out.
And then he just drove like an absolute champion.
And he also got the adequate penalty. I'll say he got the 10 seconds.
Yes, he got a 10-second
like Russell should
penalty.
have got last week.
Yeah.
But moving along.
And then he just pushed it to the limit.
Where did it come, JB? Where did it come from?
I think he just found confidence. I think he was mad. I think he actually drove angry.
He looked like he did.
I think he drove angry for once, and I think the car just suited the track.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the few times that Daniel Ricciardo and the car were in sync.
Yeah, for 20
and,
laps.
And
they
it
were.
showed.
Mm.
Just the perfect storm of he's on soft tyres. He'd already gone 45 laps on the mediums.
Yeah.
So, he had the fresh tyres to push to the end. He had the added pressure of the 10-second penalty over his head of a mistake that he knew he made. And I think it was just one of the very rare times, probably the only time this year, besides Singapore, that Daniel Ricciardo and the car really were on the same page.
And it's a shame because when it is on the same page, he's a fantastic driver. Like,
Yeah.
he was unreal.
Yeah,
The way he overtook those few cars and put a 10-second gap as we were watching it on Ocon.
Yep.
Like, with 3 laps to go, he needed like 6 seconds or something. And he just did it with
He
ease.
just
We're just
pumped
watching it jump up and up and up. Like, wow, this is incredible. Where has this been all year? Last week, you're battling Latifi for, how many times can you get blue flagged? And,
Yep.
and this week, you're just charging through the field like,
Even his qualifying was good.
yeah.
He missed Q3 by like 5/100ths of a second.
Yeah, it was better than what we've been used to, which is
Not
not making
last
it out of
week he
Q3.
qualified 17th at Coda.
It's just,
I think it was just a combination of the package and the car suiting the track finally.
I think you're right about him driving angry because I think the move on Tsunoda was almost a frustrated,
It was.
angry move. That's why it was a bad move. You don't see Ricciardo make many of them, but
He was on the softs already, and you could see how much Tsunoda was holding him up.
yeah.
We were on board with him before that move happened, and Tsunoda wheel spinned out of the slow corner before that, and Ricciardo almost ran up his ass. The
Yeah.
speed difference was that great, so he ran out of patience. He copped the deserved penalty, and then he showed us why he still belongs on the grid.
He did, yeah.
So
He did.
we'll
Well,
see.
speaking of the grid, it's time for JB's F1 report. So
Yes.
take it away, JB.
All right, the race report from the 2022 Mexican Grand Prix from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez
This
in
will probably
Mexico
be
City.
your shortest one of the year, I reckon.
Yeah, there's not many notes, guys. It was rather processional. Lap 1, world champion Max Verstappen starts on pole alongside Mercedes' George Russell. Verstappen gets the whole shot. Hamilton squeezes past Russell into second. Perez squeezes past him as well into third. Lap 8, Daniel Ricciardo passes Zhou Guan Yu on the third attempt down into turn 1. Lap 13, Pierre Gasly pushes Lance Stroll off the track after a bold overtake attempt. The FIA investigating. Lap 18, the FIA rule Gasly gains the position illegally and hand him a 5-second time penalty. Lap 24, Sergio Perez stops for fresh mediums, a bad stop that lasts 5 seconds. Lap 25, Max Verstappen pits for fresh mediums. Lap 27, Sergio Perez gets past Charles Leclerc down the front straight despite DRS and steering wheel screen issues. Lap 28, Max Verstappen tells his team the shifts are shit again. with the Red Bulls at times dodgy gearbox playing up a little. Lap 29, Lewis Hamilton boxes for hard tyres to run to the end of the race. Lap 32, Lando Norris pits for hard tyres. Lap 35, Mercedes stick with their strategy, pitting George Russell for hard tyres as well. Lap 45, Daniel Ricciardo finally pits for a set of soft tyres off his mediums, something Red Bull note as race leader Max Verstappen pushes on out in front on his medium tyres. Lap 50, Lewis Hamilton complains of power dropouts from his engine. Lap 51, Daniel Ricciardo makes contact with Yuki Tsunoda, passing him in the hairpin. The FIA is investigating as Yuki is forced to retire. Lap 55, Daniel Ricciardo gets a 10-second time penalty for his contact with Yuki Tsunoda. Lap 58, Daniel Ricciardo overtakes Lando Norris and Valtteri Bottas in consecutive laps. Lap 62, Daniel Ricciardo passes both Alpines in the space of a lap on his soft tyres. Lap 65, Lando Norris passes Valtteri Bottas for 10th. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso ahead of them clonks out at the end of the front straight, his engine dying in the Alpine. Lap 70, Daniel Ricciardo breaks the 10-second threshold over Esteban Ocon to ensure that he will finish 7th in spite of his penalty. George Russell bolts on some soft tyres for a crack at the fastest lap point. Lap 71, Max Verstappen wins the Mexican Grand Prix, breaking the record for most wins in a season with 14 and most points accrued by a driver in a single season. Lewis Hamilton finishes second. Hometown hero Sergio Perez finishes third. George Russell gets the fastest lap, and Daniel Ricciardo, very deservedly, pushing it to the limit, gets driver of the day.
In fourth place was George Russell. In fifth was Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. In sixth was Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari. Seventh was Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. Ocon was eighth in the Alpine. Lando Norris is ninth in the McLaren. And Valtteri Bottas was 10th in the Alfa Romeo. So, yeah, that was a rather procedural race.
It was a rather procedural race. I'm very happy with both my McLarens.
Which it's sad because that is actually a really awesome track.
I love driving that track in the game.
It just
didn't create great racing today.
Do you think
It
maybe
didn't create great racing last year either.
No.
Do you think maybe it's because they bring the wrong tyre compound?
No. It's because there's air as thin as hell, and these cars need a lot of cold air to stay cool. So everyone was in tyre-saving mode and engine-saving mode for
the whole race.
the whole race, yeah. It's just the altitude is what it is.
Yeah, there's not a lot of pushing it to the limit, as we've...
Daniel
Gotta
Ricciardo
be
showed
saying from now
Daniel
on.
Ricciardo showed that you can,
Yeah.
but at what expense? We don't know.
I mean, even at the start of the race, I remember there being a point where Bottas, he had dropped down a couple points, but he probably had the pace to have a go at Alonso, and the team just said to him, look, we're on, just stick to the plan, which is basically see this out and coast into the corners.
yeah, well,
Don't waste anything trying to go for him now. We'll just see this out. And it was like, well,
I think everyone was too conservative because Red Bull actually picked up the fact that Daniel Ricciardo did 45 laps on the mediums because they were going to two-stop Max and Sergio.
yeah,
And Max was out front on the mediums, and the plan was to put him on softs at the end. And
Yep.
everyone watched, and that was what Mercedes was waiting for. That's why they went on hard tyres, because they were convinced Red Bull were going to two-stop.
yeah, but they got it wrong because
And
the mediums were the go.
when Red Bull saw that Daniel Ricciardo did 45 laps on the medium, they just kept Max out there.
Yeah.
And that's what caught Mercedes out, because they were adamant Red Bull were going to two-stop, and they didn't.
Yep.
Once Daniel Ricciardo showed that you can go almost half race distance, over half race distance, on the mediums, Max just stayed out there.
Yeah.
And, held him off.
Yeah, and it would have been interesting if Mercedes had played that card first, stuck on the mediums up until a soft stint at the end.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting rather than doing what they did.
Yeah, well, it was interesting that both the Red Bulls and both the Mercedes were on the same strategy instead of splitting them. Both Red Bulls started on the softs, and I think both Mercedes started on the mediums.
Yeah, they did. They just followed each other, didn't they?
Yeah, it was odd. You usually don't see that.
I would have liked to have seen Russell said it what he suggested he'd like to keep going on the mediums. I would have liked to have let that play out.
Yeah,
I think that would have worked
I think
well for
George
Russell
was
in the
onto
end.
something.
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah, because George wanted to stay on the mediums, then go onto the softs.
Yeah.
And they said to him, "You're going to have to be on the softs for a long time to make this work." And
Well, Daniel
instead,
Ricciardo he put 21 laps on the softs. And
Yeah.
he did 45 laps on the mediums. I think George Russell had a pretty valid argument.
Yeah, I think Russell was
George
completely
Russell would have
onto
been
something.
George Russell would have been on the Daniel Ricciardo strategy, and we saw how that worked.
Yeah, imagine he would have. Yeah,
He would have probably wouldn't
Poled
have
home
caught Verstappen, but he probably would have got second.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I think he was onto something. You know, and that's just, erring in the on the side of caution.
Yeah.
Instead of following your instinct, like Daniel Ricciardo would have.
what amazed me about this race was the Ferraris were nowhere.
they're just on
They
their
were
own
nowhere
little
all
race, weren't
weekend.
they? Yeah.
Like they had FP in FP1 they had P1 and 2,
Yeah.
and then they were nowhere. Particularly during the race, they
Do you
were
think-
nowhere.
Do you think it was an engine issue? Do you think it was just trying to keep it cool?
I could have been that. Also, the this year's Ferrari is not good on its tyres,
No, it hasn't been.
so I think that they were probably trying to just save the tyres.
Just come home in 5th and 6th and be done with
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
It's damage limitation, although the gap in the championship's closed a lot now.
Yeah, and add to that, I think Mercedes have put upgrades on the car.
Yeah.
And Ferrari has already started work on next year's car.
Yeah, Mercedes is trying to push to get that one win this year.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell
They've
they're
still been
desperate
going.
for it.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll get it, though.
No, not that.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think they will. I think they had to go more aggressive this race. I think they should have listened to Russell, because as it turns out, that would have been their one chance to probably to pip them in the end.
I've got a
you
gut
know?
feeling Lewis Hamilton's going to do really well at Interlagos.
Well,
He-
last
he,
year,
he does enjoy that track. He's always enjoyed that track. I've got a feeling he's going to come on at Interlagos. I think he'll still need something to happen to Max Verstappen, because Max also loves that track,
yeah.
especially in the rain. But
He's got everyone else. It's just Max Verstappen. If Verstappen gets a DNF, I think Hamilton will be there to take the win.
Yeah.
But Verstappen's not out the race. We're just
I think
gonna
you'll,
win
I think
the
you'll
last
see
two.
the same top three next weekend as you did this weekend.
yeah. I think this will be it for the rest of the year.
I think Ferrari might have fallen off a little bit, which probably isn't great for their championship. But I wouldn't be surprised if, or you know what, maybe you'll see Charles Leclerc in third. But I think Verstappen and Hamilton will be the top two again next week, or in 2
Yeah.
weeks, whenever
I think so. Yeah.
Interlagos is. But I also think Mercedes' best chance at getting a race win this year,
It's
and
Lagos.
it'll be Lewis Hamilton, is Interlagos.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, so my key drivers for the race. The first one I think is pretty much a no-brainer. It's Daniel Ricciardo.
Push it to the limit.
It wasn't his highest finish of the year, but it was probably his best drive of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He finished fifth in Singapore, but he finished seventh here, and I think this was the better drive.
He had the most overtakes on the overtakes just about in the. He had all the overtakes in the race this race.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, like you guys were saying before, that he drove angry, which is what I've been saying from a long time, is that Ricciardo needs to ditch the jokiness and get on with it.
Just
Put that serious
Just
side.
sent, he
into
should have sent it.
Yeah.
Ages ago.
Yeah, but
if he
that's the
has
thing,
finally
like-
done that, he's taken too long. But
But I also think it was a combination of him and the car finally having some sort of sync,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
also the team getting it right. Like the
The
team,
team got
finally,
it right. They got the fastest pit stop of the year. You didn't see it. 1.98 seconds.
hey,
It was the fastest pit stop of the season so far for Daniel Ricciardo's stop on the softs,
nice.
which is amazing. But I think it was a simple case of him and the car being in sync for once.
Yeah.
Because as angry as you want to drive, if you don't have the car under you, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you could have driven as angry as you wanted in Coda, it just wasn't going to happen.
I mean, if you think about everything, we've said it all lined up. Hey, he got the soft stint at the end while everyone else was coasting on hards or mediums to see it out,
Yeah.
and he just had the free rein to just send it. And yeah, obviously, for the first time in a long time, he had sync with the car, and it worked with everyone else not pushing. So he was pretty much the only one able to go for it, and yeah,
Worked
we
out
got the
well.
result we got, which was awesome.
Yeah, very happy.
My next key driver was Esteban Ocon.
You had a pretty good day.
He had not a bad day at the office. A little bit under the radar, but he did okay. He banged in some points.
I feel like if Fernando had finished this race, we'd be talking about Fernando more than Esteban, but
Yeah, we would have.
That's the thing. Like, him and Fernando were pretty much chained to the hip for most of the race.
yeah, they were. And, well, Fernando was ahead of both him and Lando Norris
And-
when his engine clogged.
Well, my final driver of the day, oddly enough, is not a McLaren driver and not an Alpine driver. It's Valtteri Bottas.
He had pace this weekend.
Yeah, the Alfa Romeo's had pace this week, and he used it to his advantage.
Yeah, he actually put in a really solid effort, and he showed the driver that he can be.
It's his first points finish in 10 races.
Yeah.
And Daniel Ricciardo's first points finish in 8 races. So some good droughts got broken
Yeah.
today.
There's been 8 races in
It's been
Singapore.
8 races. No. It was his second points finish in 8 races? Something
Yeah,
like
it'd
that.
have to be that, yeah, because Singapore
I
wasn't.
read
that
it
long ago.
somewhere today and I sort of glazed over it.
No, it was good by Valtteri. He was really good this weekend. Qualified in 6th, had pace. Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
weekend for him.
Yeah, it's a solid day at the office.
Good confidence boost for him.
Right, so they're my key drivers. Now, before we get into the news, we have a couple of corrections from last week. So the
I
first,
have a rather major one.
the first correction was that we said that Tim Cook, who waved the checkered flag at the end of the race, was Harvey Cook's dad. It turns out that was not correct.
Just because they had the same last name doesn't mean they're related.
Oh no, it was
Who
the
knew?
bloody internet was saying, oh, they're related, da 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 da. So the
Yeah,
internet
that
got
line.
it wrong.
We're not journalists.
We got
Yeah.
Wikipedia'd.
Yeah.
Someone.
JB's supposed to be the journalist among us.
I didn't even know who Tim Cook was, mate.
Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple.
Well, I have an Android phone, so
So now I'm going to sit here and say that him waving the flag looked the most unenthusiastic hand job I've ever
Yeah.
seen in a lifetime.
now that I know he wasn't mourning his now recently departed son, and he is actually just the CEO of Apple, the dude didn't want to be outside.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. That's why all week I'm sitting there reading all these F1 things. Everyone's just giving it shit, and in my head I'm like, do these people not know who he is? Like,
Did you not know
and
his son
I'm
just
going
died?
through all the comments like, oh, people are heartless. Like the poor guys that And then I'm like looking it up, and it's like, oh, I'm like, whoa, Harvey Cook's dad's the CEO of Apple. What?
No,
No,
Hang on a
apparently
second,
not.
Phil. Did we get this right?
no.
Why does the CEO of Apple's son work for Haas Racing?
Sponsorship.
And
And
why the hell is it the Apple logo on the Haas car?
sponsorship. And the other correction was a correction that I had to make in post after we
Oh my
recorded
God.
last week's episode.
This sucks. This sucks for you.
Because
Yeah.
So, at the end of the last race, Fernando Alonso finished, I think, 7th.
Yep.
And then, about an hour after we recorded the episode, he got a 30-second penalty that dropped him down to 13th.
Yes, for his mirror flying off.
So, I sat there and meticulously recorded and edited in a correction. Only for this to happen on Friday, for it to get reversed back, and Fernando Alonso got given back his 7th place.
We got done did by the FIA.
They duped everyone.
Oh, still trying to figure out how to interpret their own rules. Just wanted to have a chat after the race. Just want to have a chat.
Yeah. And then let's have another chat the next weekend.
Yeah, a week later, and let's decide then. Like, Jesus
Just
Christ.
screwed. I mean, FIA, F1, sorry, on their Facebook page put up the drivers and constructors standings ratified afterwards, because that's where I get it from when I put it up on the YouTube one. So they had the original one. Then when I was editing the video the next night, they put up the other one. So I put them in when I did the edit. And now it's redundant. It's got back to the first one.
Yeah.
And now
Bloody
I'm
This
sitting
is-
here thinking, well, I put all this effort in to edit that bloody thing in
To be wrong.
to be wrong.
And all the effort of Tim Cook not having a dead son. That we know of. That works for Haas.
The
Right,
bloody
well-
FIA, though, isn't that what we've talked about, how ridiculous it is that, like, a week later they're still changing things about a race that finished a week ago. Like,
You never had that with Massey.
I know, like, even this race, right, I don't, like, when Gasly overtook Stroll, clear cut, should have given the place back.
Martin Brundle said it within a second. He's like, yeah, that's
with
bad.
a tenth of a second, he's like, yeah, and everyone watching was like, yeah, that should be. It took how long? It took them so long to
5
work out
laps.
they had to give him
It
a
took
penalty.
them.
5 laps.
It took them 2 laps to begin investigating it,
yeah.
and then it took another like 5 laps after that to hand the penalty down.
Like, I remember under Massey's rule, if that ever happened, he would be straight onto the blowers saying to the team principals, like, he's got to give that back.
Give this
Yeah,
one
And
back.
they would be saying to their driver, we got to give that one back. Like,
Yeah.
within a couple, like,
Yeah, he'd
almost
be sitting there
instantly.
saying, I'll give you a deal. You
Yeah.
do this and da da da
straight
da.
away. This one, it's like they take too long to even look at it. And then when they do, they handball it off to someone else. And then by the time they get to it, it's like, oh, it's too late to do
They're
what we
just
should have
giving
done.
each other sad hand jobs.
Yeah.
To be fair, the F1 did take your advice, Longhorn. Daniel Ricciardo took Yuki Tsunoda out of the race, and they gave him a straight-up 10-second time penalty
And I was
instead
happy
of a
with it.
5.
I was very happy with that adjudication of
Yeah,
penalty
I
giving.
agreed with it too. Because,
Yeah.
And it only took him 3 laps.
yeah.
3 laps to have the penalty out.
And then we got bonsai Daniel Ricciardo for 21 laps. That was
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah, it was sick.
Right, so now we've done the corrections. Now we get to the news. And the first news item is that Mexico City will be hosting an F1 race all the way through to 2025.
Yeah, good.
I like that.
I was just about to say, I don't know how I feel about it after watching this race.
You don't have to feel anything about it because there's 300,000 Mexicans that cheered
Yeah.
every single lap
Here's the thing.
of practice, qualifying,
Yeah.
and the race that Sergio Perez's Red Bull went past.
As a
And
spectacle
they
for
booed Lewis Hamilton out of the
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
As a spectacle, as in like an event, it's great. It's absolutely great. My criticism would just be the race isn't very entertaining, and it's also at a point in the year when we've already wrapped up. You know, with F1 going for more races, it's like, do we want these races that are so processional when the championship's already wrapped up? Like, it's kind of like, oh, we're waiting for this season to be over.
well,
you
last
know,
year
like,
last year it wasn't wrapped up. It was
no,
a pro- it
last year was
a-
the best season we've ever had, though. You
It
know,
was a
like,
processional race last year, though.
Yeah.
yeah, it was,
But it didn't seem that way because
But the championship wasn't wrapped up.
Max Verstappen was closing the gap on Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Look,
so-
it's just one of the tracks that just doesn't quite. But dude, you're drawing a baseball stadium full of fans
Yeah, I get that.
plus another 100,000 on top of that.
I'm not complaining about the fans coming to it. Fans are going to pack out Miami. It doesn't mean Miami was a good race. Fans love Monaco, but you hate Monaco as a race. It's like, that's just my same thoughts for Mexico, that's all. I've got
Yeah,
no
I
problem
think
with it
this-
being there because you've got plenty of fans that come watch it.
Well, I
I'm just
think
saying
this
the
track
race
has
is-
potential to produce an invigorating race. We just haven't seen one for a while.
I just think they got to get the tyre selection right. I keep
It's just
coming back
hard
to the
running
tyres.
these cars in. They're
It's
2.
the air problem. That's
They're
what you're saying.
2.5 kilometers over sea level, mate. Like
Yeah.
you've got a 1,000 horsepower car trying to suck in air to cool it down, sucking air to the turbo, and you're 2,500 meters above sea level. Like it's
Well,
hard enough.
maybe they should host it a bit earlier in the year when it's a bit cooler.
They're still the same, though,
Well,
with the air. The air altitude's still the same.
No, but it'll be easier to keep everything cooler if they run it in cooler conditions.
I don't know.
Potentially. I mean, I'd like to see him try something because, yeah, I just don't think the track's going to create great. It's the same as like when the Denver Broncos, right? Whenever everyone plays at the Broncos, they go flat. The
Yeah.
team that goes there is not entertaining. The only one who's got an advantage is the Broncos because they're from that altitude, and it's like
Yeah.
unless we're going to do 3 races at altitude, it's not going to matter because it's the car. It's not the athletes themselves. It's the cars that won't be able to adjust to it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, the spectacle itself's awesome. The Mexican fans are awesome. It looks awesome. I like the layout of the track. It's just a shame that it seems that cars can't push on it to make it
Yeah.
more entertaining.
You know what? I sort of think taking the data from this year, next year they will.
I hope so.
Because they watched Daniel Ricciardo. Everyone was like, oh, it's going to be a 2-stop race, just nurse everything. Now that they watch Daniel Ricciardo do 45 laps on the mediums,
Next year might be.
next year they'll be like, hey,
One stop
man,
and
we'll
push, yeah.
push the shit out of this. We can turn this into a one-stopper.
But during, I think it was FP2, because FP2 was an extended session because they had to do 45 minutes on the prototype for next year's tyre.
Oh, did they do that again?
Yeah,
They did that in Coda as well.
yeah. So they're trying out the new tyre.
Yeah, they're doing the 2023 tyre test.
Have we heard any
Yeah.
feedback from the new tyres at all?
Yeah, but you're not allowed to know which one you're on.
Yeah.
They put it on as pure black. You don't know it's the soft, the medium, or the hard.
Yeah.
And you go out and you have to run 3 consecutive push laps on each tyre, like as hard as you can.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to change the setup of your car while
yeah,
you're
and you
running
can't
it.
change the setup of the car. You just got to run the tyre as hard as you can for 3 laps, and
Just-
then come in,
yeah.
put the next set on, go, and then, some drivers will figure out, if you're a second and a half quicker on this tyre than that tyre, then one's softer than that, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. I haven't had much feedback on it yet. I just know that it's a blind. What do they call
Testing.
them? Blind placebo test.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know what you're doing or what you're on.
Right, the next news item was that Red Bull has been sanctioned for the 2021 cost cap breach.
Yes, they have.
They have signed the form,
Mhm.
so they have agreed to.
That
the
penalty.
agreement penalty.
Yeah.
£7 million.
But I think they are in fact losing more wind tunnel time
Yeah.
and money off the cost cap.
They've been fined £7 million. They're losing 10% more. Not that they have much because they're the champion team of wind tunnel testing time. So
Yep.
whatever they have minus 10%, which isn't a, whatever they have, which is sweet FA to begin with,
Yeah.
minus 10%.
And it was deemed to be an administrative issue. Like it was just
Yeah,
someone.
all the Lewis
didn't count the
fanboys
pennies.
saying that they cheated.
Yeah. No,
It wasn't car related. We knew that from the start. The FA knew that too, which is why, why weren't they deducted points because they're cheaters? Because it wasn't car related.
yeah, that's right. 100%.
So
When
and-
did the money they have to pay, is that coming off the cost cap for next year, or is it just a straight out fine?
It's coming off the cost cap.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
it's exactly probably a fair penalty with what we want to see for people who do break
Yeah.
the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though, as we've said, they didn't really quote unquote cheat. They just stuffed up on their books and got
Yeah.
some administrative stuff
Well-
wrong. It wasn't in the car,
Earlier in the year, Williams got done for the cost cap breach, but it wasn't a cost cap breach. It was they filed the paperwork about 3 weeks too late.
Well, Aston Martin got done too. The cost
Yeah.
cap. Hey, there we go.
Yeah,
next
yeah.
news
Next one is Aston Martin got sanctioned for the 2021 cost cap breach. Now, I have to admit, I didn't do a lot of research on this before we got to doing the episode. So, if one of you guys knows what the hell,
they was fined £450,000. I don't know what they did.
I think they might have just gone over by a couple of £100.
Yeah, well, I sort of read somewhere Christian Horner reckons after taxes of their deduction, they actually only went over. They were sanctioned. They went over by 1.6%, but Christian Horner reckons after taxes and all the stuff goes through, it was only about 0.8%.
Yeah.
So Red Bull didn't go over by much, and Aston Martin went over by even less.
Yeah.
Like
So
half
much
a-
so less
half-
that no one's
not even
talking
half a
about it.
million pounds. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why when this all come out, I didn't want to sit there and everyone be like, oh, Red Bulls are cheaters. It's like, this is a whole new thing for Formula One that everyone's trying to figure out. There's going to be some blips and bumps. Like,
Yeah.
That's what's made me so disgusted in that Ted Kravitz. Like,
Yes,
he's supposed
exactly.
to be a journalist. He's supposed to be a pit lane journalist and stuff.
yeah, neutral.
And here he is after Coda implying that they cheated. And they implied that Max Verstappen isn't really world champion, and implied this and implied that. I didn't even see
Is
what
he
he said.
implying that? No, he's not. Everyone's saying he's implying about it that this year's championship's tainted. Did anyone tell him that the cost cap breach was for last year, not this year? Like, this championship's 100% legal. The cost cap was for last year's championship.
Yeah.
And it wasn't car related. So
I wouldn't mind betting that Sky Sports is going to imply on Ted Kravitz that he should shut his face or he's going to lose his job.
They probably don't care, though, because they're so British biased.
yeah,
It's-
which
it's what they
sucks
push.
because that
It
just
sucks.
means I'm going to see more of Damon Hill and Johnny Herbert. I don't want to
Hurt.
hurt. I mean, Jensen Button's there and he's fine, and Corinne Chandok's on there.
Did you
Corinne
see?
Chandok
Did you
is
see
good
who
on
was
the Sky
doing
Pad.
who was doing analysis for this race for Sky Sports?
Was it Danica Patrick?
Yes.
She did it for the Coda as well.
God, she should get off my TV.
She can stay on my TV as much as she wants.
As long as she
needs to
just
stop
shuts
talking.
up.
As long as she doesn't talk.
Nah, she's alright. I like that they're
Oh.
trying. I like that. Yeah, in Coda that was fine, but why did they bring her to Mexico?
Yeah,
'Cause
Coda's
she's nearby.
She live what? In California, I guess.
Yeah, so she just jumps on a plane and flies over. It's easier
Yeah,
than
I
bringing
mean,
someone all the way
An
over.
American analyst in America is fine, but American analyst in Mexico is like a bit.
Yeah, but if you're going to get an American analyst, get Willie T. Ribbs. At least someone who's driven a Formula One car from America.
That's
not
true.
Danica Patrick.
Hell
My only drawback on Danica Patrick is she keeps making IndyCar references
Yeah.
because that's all she's driven. She's
yeah.
driven an IndyCar, but she's never
I
driven
mean,
a Formula
Christ,
One
go
car.
and dig up Scott Speed. He knows more about
to be
Formula
fair,
One car.
She was deflecting it a lot. Who was with her? It was Nick DeFries was with her and someone else. I don't it might have been Alex Pillow, but there was another American guy there, and they were just exchanging information. So she was very deferring to the F1 boys, though, in her question. She's like, "Look, I've only driven an IndyCar, so I only know it to this point. But what's it like beyond that?" So she was very deferring in her, she wasn't prancing around pretending she knows what she's talking about.
My problem with her, though, is she just sounds pretentious.
Nah,
Like, she just seems snobbyish.
Nah, look.
She's always rubbed me that way, though. Like, she's always just come across as snobby. Like,
There-
I'm the pretty girl. I should be allowed to drive a car wherever the hell I want, however I want, and I can crash it into the wall and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Because that's pretty much
she's
been
still
her
a,
career.
she's still a top pundit in spite of her race results.
Eh.
But you can say that for a few.
Where's
I mean,
that British lady? I can't remember her name, so I'm going to
Naomi?
apologize. Yeah.
Yeah.
She drove in Formula W.
Yeah.
I've got more respect for her than Danica Patrick.
Jamie Chadwick, while we're on the subject, was on the F1 TV panel this weekend.
Yeah?
In Williams Top. Yes.
Ooh.
Having a good time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Right, now we get to the next news item, and this broke earlier in the week. Sauber is becoming Audi from 2026. Audi is progressively buying the Sauber team starting from the end of 2023 when Alfa Romeo ends their relationship with Sauber.
Nice.
So Sauber will revert back to being called Sauber and retain their relationship with Ferrari until 2026.
Right.
And
So there'll be Sauber F1 in 2024 to 26.
25, and then 2026 they become Audi F1.
Right.
And
100
Audi owns them.
100% owned by Audi.
So Sauber's out. Peter Sauber's out.
Peter Sauber's been out for a few years. He sold the team a couple of years ago to a consortium.
Oh, right. So it's like the Williams thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now the
right.
consortium is selling the team to Audi.
Very nice.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the interesting point with Audi. They're going to be taking over Sauber. But they're still trying to figure out a way to get Porsche on the grid. Because Porsche still wants to be on the grid.
Williams. So
Williams.
Williams to Porsche.
Well, apparently they're
50-50 deal.
they're still leaning towards it's going to be Porsche Andretti.
Right, then
With
new entry
Andretti
together. Yep.
joining.
Yeah, as a whole new team.
That or let Porsche buy AlphaTauri.
But I actually have a quick little conversation piece, but I'll bring it up after the next news item because I've actually got to lean over and grab it from my printer. Or you can just pass it to me. But we'll wait until after the next news item to have my little conversation piece. So the next news item is that Mick Schumacher in 2026 is most likely going to be driving for Audi.
Good.
2026.
Yes.
So what the heck's he going to do within the next 3 years?
He might be working with Audi on developing the car and stuff.
And not driving.
And not driving for
Depends if Haas retain him.
Haas. At this stage, it's not looking good.
It's not looking good. So if he gets dumped, and mind you, if Schumacher leaves, see on his uniform how it's got 1 and 1?
That's his dad's sponsor, isn't it?
Yep, they go. And another sponsor of the Haas team that he has on his own personal caps which his dad also had on his caps, is VW.
Oh, nice.
He's got VW dealership as his own personal sponsor.
Right.
So Haas will lose 2 major sponsors.
But they'll get Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah, push it to the limit.
Push it to the
Push
average.
it to the...
I think that if that's the way Schumacher's going to go, like if he loses his seat at Haas, then that might be the best way for him to go, is to bide his time, go and do sports cars, because that's actually how Schumacher got into F1. He was doing sports cars.
Michael, we were talking about.
Yes, sorry, Michael
His
Schumacher.
father.
Yeah, the Michael. He was doing sports cars and then was drafted in to drive Jordan's 1991 car
Yeah.
or 1990 car. It was one of the two. And then he was supposed to sign with Jordan, but instead Benetton got in first and signed him, and he went to Benetton and became a 2-time world champion with Benetton. So maybe him, if he doesn't get re-signed with Haas and Williams don't snag him, go and do sports cars for a year or two.
Plenty of options. You can go DTM, Sports Cars, World Endurance.
Well, okay, though, let's just
Probably
say
all
he's
three.
lined up for Audi 26, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes and does sports cars for the next couple of years because he doesn't get Haas.
Mm-hmm.
Does he get back before he gets to Audi in 26? Is that what you're implying he's going to try and do?
I think they'll bring him in, say, 25.
Oh, you're saying as when they're Sauber, they might bring him in before they even get to being Audi in
Yeah.
26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably
He'll
after,
get in,
potentially
he'll
after next year, if they don't like Guan Yu Zhou's year, they'll probably move him on and bring... Okay.
Don't forget, Zhou Guanyu is still an Alpine Academy driver.
Are you sure he is?
Yes.
I swear he was bought out.
No, because he was on loan to them. He was on loan to Alfa Romeo. That's how they got him, because Alpine were like, we want our drivers on the grid.
Unless it's Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
And then we don't want him on the grid, and then we're going to bitch when you steal him.
Yeah, because we don't actually have a proper contract with him.
Yeah.
Despite the fact we think we've got a proper contract with him. But, I think Schumacher being a driver for Audi in 2026 might be a really good shot for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having a hand in developing the car from the ground up. Or, because, they're buying Sauber. Sauber apparently has the best wind tunnel on the grid.
Yeah, right.
Because their wind tunnel was used to design the current spec of cars.
Yeah.
Like, Ross
'Cause
Brawn.
McLaren's opens next year, and so does Aston Martin's.
So, because F1 put up a thing, it was like a 20-minute video on the history of Sauber. It was a really good watch. Like, I really do implore everyone to watch it. Like, it even covers, like, the period when BMW owned the team and Robert Kubica got their first ever win.
That was a good
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting thing. Went into depth about Peter Sauber himself and the history of the team and everything. So, and then it finishes with them saying, and then in 2026, it's going to be Sauber will become Audi F1 because Audi's buying all the facilities, the wind tunnel, lock, stock, the works. So, yeah, I think if Schumacher wants to take a year or two off from F1, go and do something else, and then come back fresh and work on the Audi project.
Yeah.
Because, at this rate, he's never going to get into a Ferrari as much as I want him in a Ferrari.
Well, he's not a part of the academy anymore, so
No.
he's definitely not. And
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Hey, look, it might be his only shot as well, because as we've all been saying as well, it doesn't look likely that he's going to stay for Haas, and all it's going to take for the other last seat to be sewn up is Logan Sargent I think he has to get higher than 6 in Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
So as long as he gets that, he's going to be the Williams driver. So, yeah, it might be his only shot to stay in, because there's nowhere else to go. So.
If he doesn't get 6th, though, they're going to be doing a mad scramble to find someone.
Yeah, I think that's when Mick might come into play,
Yeah.
because I don't know who else they scramble to get.
But, I think Gunther Steiner needs to make a decision. You know, he's pussyfooting around with it. Either shoot him and put him out of his misery, or put a contract in front of him. I still maintain he is the best option for Haas.
I think he is too.
Giovinazzi was never anything special,
Yeah.
and Hulkenberg is a has-been, or more to the point, a never was.
Yeah.
He never was.
Mhm.
So here we go. My conversation point on my bit of paper here. This was just a bit of Mr. Squiggle on Friday night. So my potential F1 grid for 2026, not the drivers, but the teams and their engine suppliers. Okay, so obviously Scuderia Ferrari, running Ferrari. Mercedes AMG, running Mercedes. Red Bull, I've got them running Honda.
Yeah, I think they'll just revert back to Honda.
I've got McLaren still running Mercedes.
Yeah, I think so.
Alpine still running Renault. Aston Martin still running Mercedes.
Mhm.
AlphaTauri back to Honda. Audi Sauber running Audi. Now here's where things... Oh, I've got Haas running Ferrari still. I've got Williams running Audi.
Yeah, I think Williams are going to make a change.
And I've got Andretti Porsche.
I think what's going to dictate what Williams does depends on what happens with Andretti Porsche. If
Yeah.
Andretti Porsche, that's the way they both get in the grid. I can see what you're saying. I think they'll go to Audi. But if for some reason that doesn't happen, I think Porsche will be the ones that will combine with Williams.
Yeah, I think because Stefano Domenicali and Mohammed Ben, I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm just going to call him Mohammed Ben. Salami, whatever his name is. They want Porsche on the grid. But the other teams don't want Andretti on the grid. And the only way Andretti's going to get on the grid is if they bring Porsche.
Yeah.
The only other way that I see Porsche getting on the grid is if they buy into Williams.
Yep.
And Porsche wants to have a 50-50 partnership with someone.
I think Williams is that option.
Williams Porsche has got a good ring
'Cause
to it.
Williams doesn't have... You know, they got a good relationship with Mercedes, but they're also... You know, Durant Capital's there, but they seem like they're desperate for some support of some
Yeah,
kind.
they need something else.
They need something
Yeah.
more
Like a
than what
Porsche to come
Mercedes
in.
is giving them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need a engine supplier to come in and focus on them.
Yeah.
Their own engine supply.
Also-
they can't be the C team,
Oh, yeah.
you know, to another engine supplier on
And
the grid.
I think that Williams needs a change. Like, they need to get...
They
an
need a
inject-
fresh approach. They need
They
need
need
a
to...
revival.
even like even people within the team.
Yeah.
You know, if you get Porsche, then you can also get Porsche engineers to come in
Yep.
and
Yep.
give you a fresh perspective. You can get Porsche guys to work with some aerodynamic changes and
You might
Yeah,
even be able to encourage some high up engineers and other top teams to come over because you're exciting now. You've got Porsche
Yeah.
coming in. You're like, that's exactly right. We need a revival of it, something new to come in and give us some life to
You
be
need
like,
some- you need
Williams
some
might
fresh
be actually
blood.
going up the grid because the way it is at the moment, I just don't think they're ever going to move up quick enough until another engine, you know,
yeah.
change comes in and then
It feels like Williams has no ambition.
I think they've
Despite-
got ambition. They
They've
just
got
don't have the
ambition,
right.
they don't have anyone to lead them.
Yeah.
Like Jos Capito
They're
has
lost.
got... Jos Capito's got ambition. But I don't think Dorilton Capital have ambition.
No, they're
They
about
don't have the
money.
support
Yeah.
to, like, okay,
They're
you,
just-
you
they're
got,
just-
you've got a good team principal and you got funding. That's great, but you need some bright sparks. You need that injection of enthusiasm from somewhere.
Yeah, and that's where
I don't think you're
engine
getting it.
supply would
You're not
come
getting
in.
it with being Mercedes' D team.
No, Mercedes don't care. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're just raking in the cash. Like, yeah, we'll take you.
Yeah.
You can have our drivers if you want. Yeah, no
Yep.
problem.
And that's right. That's where Williams need to aspire to more. It's all good having the great team principal we do. It's all good hiring, you know, younger drivers, giving them a shot, and you know, being this team that takes the risks to move up and get points and whatever. But
Yeah,
you know, we've got the funding, like you said, so we've secured our spot with funding. But it's like exactly what we're saying. We need that extra boost, and the way we get that is to having a full focused engine supplier
yeah,
just on Williams.
yeah.
It's the only way they're going to move up. That's the only way any team, in my opinion, moves up from anywhere, is being full focus on their team.
I think Jos Capito needs to take the summer off and sit down and look at the history of the Williams team
Yes, and get it back to that.
to realise Frank Williams always took chances.
Yep.
Yeah, he took chances by partnering up with Honda in the late 80s and then Renault in the early 90s. Took chances by dumping Nigel Mansell while he's winning the championship. Took chances by signing Senna despite the fact that Prost said, I will not drive for the same team as him.
Mm-hmm.
Took chances with Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, Ralph Schumacher, Juan Pablo Montoya, Mark Webber.
Yep.
Always took chances. Took chances with the BMW engines.
Yeah. Turn them into spaceships.
And now they're just sitting there treading water going, oh yeah, we'll just take the scraps from Toto's table.
Yeah, we're just playing it safe. Oh, Mercedes have been pretty good. We'll just take their engine. It's like you're taking the... It's just...
Yeah, they need to roll the dice. They need to do something to get them off the bottom of the grid. Because at this stage, Williams' name... The Williams name isn't worth piss.
It's a tough watch. It really is a tough watch. Every week you go out and you watch,
It's hard for you guys, man. I watch Alex Albon in the top 10 until the last 10 laps of a race.
It happens just
It's
about
so
every single
heartbreaking.
Grand Prix. He
It's
does
so
all the hard work to get
heartbreaking.
himself to 10th, and then he falls out because we just don't quite have it. And
But here's the thing. This is where my heartbreak comes from. Like, you're used to Williams, quote unquote, doing a bit shit. I mean, it's been what?
yeah,
seven
unfortunately,
years.
I wasn't hugely into F1 back in the day because I was a child when Williams were.
But I mean, it's
awesome,
been
but
7 years of that,
Yeah.
and before 2014, it was.
it's the last time we had a bit of.
It's been
Alright.
it's been a decade since a Williams has run a race. A decade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
more
sad.
than hard, eh?
It's sad.
And this is either the second or third most successful team in F1,
Yep.
and they're at the bottom of the table.
Williams go hand in hand with Ferrari when it comes to Formula
that's-
One. They're
that's-
like a legacy name.
Well, that's the thing. That's what the point I'm going to is that we're sort of expecting Williams to be crap.
and that's what's sad.
But
That's what's sad.
I'd like to know what the hell is going on with Ferrari. Like, I mean, the start of the year, I was over the moon. We were winning races. We were fighting for the championship.
Yep.
And then we've
Then
had
the
6
reliability issues happened, and
reliability issues, stupid bloody strategy calls.
oh my god,
Bad car
Charles
setups.
Leclerc's fucking
Charles
binned
Leclerc
it.
bottling it.
How many times has Charles spun from the lead of a race this year?
Too many.
Twice? Three
Yeah.
times?
Ferrari threw it away themselves, but at
Yeah.
least Ferrari, as much as they get it wrong, so they shoot themselves in the foot, at least Ferrari's got ambition to win, in a sense.
Yeah, but-
Okay, they stuff it up, but as jumping back to what we're saying about Williams, like what you're saying, Williams used to be a team as their ambition was winning, which
Yeah.
meant you took chances to win.
Yeah.
Now it feels like we just expect Williams to just be at the bottom and be a placeholder, just a name in the sport, because
Yeah,
we've been there
they're-
for so long.
They're limping along.
Yeah,
They're
and
just
it's-
limping along for the sake of it.
We can't keep watching that. We need them to go, no, we're Williams. We're going to go back to being competitive. I think the sport needs us to be competitive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think Williams need to switch that flip the switch, and go, no, we got to start taking some charges. We can't just be happy with Mercedes and take lone drivers, and we got to be our own 2 feet.
Yeah.
Do what Frank Williams did. Take a chance on other. Who cares? Like, if we take a chance and we're last again, who bloody cares? We're last now.
Yeah.
We take a dog box that we take Porsche and they're crap. Oh well, we're crap now. It's better than accepting that. And,
At least if they sign up with Porsche and Porsche doesn't work out and Porsche sits there and goes, you know what, I don't think it's for us. They can immediately sit there and go, well, get us in the door with Audi.
that's right. Get
Us in the door with Audi, and we can go from there. It can't be any worse.
I don't see that ever happening though. Like, even if you've got a team focused purely on you, they're going to do everything in their everything they can to make it work because their name's on the line.
Yeah.
This Mercedes' name's not on the line if Williams sucks.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, no one cares
Yeah.
that this Mercedes engine in Williams. Whereas if it was Porsche and that was the only one on the grid, everyone would be like, oh, Porsche
Yeah.
don't want that. So they
Yeah.
would put everything into making sure that works. Whereas when it's Mercedes' name, Who cares?
But it
Just here's an engine. Pay us money. Like,
for me, like watching a movie like Rush and going through like the history of the the F1 championship. You know, in the 70s and that, the Ford Cozze, the Cozze, it was like the beefiest engine on the grid.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back 10 years ago when you had teams like Caterham and
Marussia.
Marussia, and, but specifically teams back then that were running the Cozze engine, and they were always at the back
Yeah.
of the grid. Like even when, you know, I think Williams was running a Cozze, you know, Jaguar was running Cozze, and they weren't doing well.
Yeah.
And you sit there, and my immediate reaction every time I saw a Cosworth on the grid was, that's a crappy Ford engine. Not realising until the last few years that the Ford engine was something great back in the 70s and the 80s.
The Cosworth engine was untouchable back in the 70s and 80s.
and unfortunately, that's the way Williams are going. The Williams are like the Cozzy engine in a sense. At one point, they were the team.
Yeah, they
in
were the
Formula
pinnacle of F1.
Yeah, and now it's like, we're the bottom dwellers.
Yeah.
Who wants to be for Williams? You know,
But-
and it's sad.
But I was thinking about this just before, that there could be another team. If Porsche wanted to buy another team, there is another team I reckon Porsche could buy,
Other than Williams.
other than Williams. Haas.
Yeah.
See,
well,
that
that's I
Gene
can see
Haas
Andretti
want-
buying it.
Gene Haas keeps saying, well, you know, we don't have money to spend, blah, 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 blah. Well, for me, Gene Haas seems like he doesn't want to be in F1. He's just doing it because it's a novelty project
it's
for
not-
Gunther Steiner.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Like Gunther Steiner talked him into it, and now he can't. Like Gunther Steiner's like Hitler when he met with, was it Mussolini, the Italian leader? When he met with him, he talked his head off for 5 hours, and the Italian Mussolini was trying to pull out of the war, and Hitler was so hyped up on cocaine, he just kept talked him to staying into it. Is that what Steiner and Haas is? Like Haas is, you know. Steiner just keeps talking over. Oh, okay, we got to keep going. You know, all he ever does is complain about the money he has to spend. It's like, well, sell to another team.
And specifically complain about Mick Schumacher.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you're sitting there taking parts from Ferrari's table and letting Ferrari do a lot of work, and then sitting there going, oh yeah, well, we've created a fucking rock star car, even though the fact that most of your car is made elsewhere, like the chassis is made by Dallara. Yeah, Haas makes very little. For a company like Haas, which the entire company name is Haas Engineering, because Red Bull Racing in the supercars uses Haas Engineering equipment for manufacturing and that. For a company that manufactures stuff and is an engineering company, they seem to not make a lot on this fucking F1 car.
No, but they're fine. They're fine in NASCAR and IndyCar, though.
Well, that's great, but so's Penske.
Yeah.
You know?
Again, it feels like the only reason Haas is on F1 is to almost be like a up yours to Penske in a sense, because they've got the car in F1 and Penske.
Yeah, a big FU to Penske and Andretti.
Yeah, and that's all it is.
And now Andretti wants in. It's like, well, why are you blocking Andretti? Well, prove that you're better than Andretti on the world stage. That's not putting down NASCAR or IndyCar. That Aidan Millward, he did a video about why IndyCar isn't as popular as it should, despite the fact that a lot of the time the racing is just as good, if not better, than F1.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's because it feels like it's a national series, not an international series like Formula One.
Bring it back
Correct.
to the Gold Coast. Bring them back to the Gold Coast.
Well, I said...
Start expanding outside of the US.
I put a comment on his video saying that I think IndyCar's biggest problem is that to the outside world, to outside of America, it's deemed as the the Formula One knockoff that just drives around ovals, that turns left 1,000 times. Same as NASCAR. NASCAR to people outside of America.
Oval racing is dying.
Yeah, but it's still deemed to be that one that drives around an oval 3,000 times and they can only
Well, you
turn
can say
left.
oval racing is dying and conveniently forget the Indy 500 is like the biggest race on the planet.
Well, the biggest race this year for IndyCar wasn't the Indy 500. wasn't even the Daytona 500.
What was it?
I can't remember it, but
Okay.
it wasn't them two.
Nice.
It was one of the actual street circuits.
Yeah, nice.
I think street racing's getting more popular in IndyCar, and I think that's its strength. If it wants to keep building it has to probably, or to be honest, ditch most of the oval tracks
I think that they
and start, as JB said, like go to the Gold Coast, start going to a couple of other places to keep building it up if it wants to.
well one
get
of the
more
one of the
international.
things that Aidan Millward said in his video about IndyCar, that was the big problem with IndyCar, is that all their events are on the same time or the same weekend as another event.
Yeah.
Like Indy is on the same time as Monaco.
Yeah.
So the F1 fan is not going to watch IndyCar. They're going to record it, watch it later, but they're going to watch Monaco live.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Despite
Everyone's
the
gonna
fact
pick F1.
To be honest, both races are procedural.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Indy
know,
was pretty good this year.
I know, but it still is procedural because it's an oval.
Yeah.
It's just them driving around an oval. But then that also shows my ignorance because I see it as
Driving around an oval.
driving around an oval.
Yeah, but that race was won by Magnus Ericsson.
Willpower.
No, it was Ericsson.
Oh, yeah, it's Ericsson.
Yeah, Marcus Ericsson.
Marcus Ericsson won that race by like half a second, and Pato O'Ward almost had him on the last lap. Like,
The I also put in my comment that my interest in watching the highlights of IndyCar this year was because we had Scotty McLaughlin on the grid.
and he won 2 races.
Yeah. And watching the highlights, I don't think I could sit through an entire race. But watching the highlights, you look at it and go, they're driving cars that have got bigger engines that don't have the kinetic energy stuff,
Yet,
that don't have power steering.
yeah, that one puzzles me.
But it's the silly tacky things like you've got X amount of seconds of push to pass. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that seems a little bit...
That's that's their equivalent of DRS.
Yeah. But it's the silly gimmicky thing of knowing that they're going to go around an oval circuit at some point.
It's the American radio engineers that come on. Don't ask me why. It sounds tacky compared to Formula One.
Yeah.
I know that sounds bad because they can't help it. It's probably their accent, but it just sounds like B grade to Formula One, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like Formula One sounds like the international best product you get,
It sounds
and theirs
first
sounds
class.
like and theirs sounds like the cheap,
Yeah.
That's
knockoff.
it. I
But
mean, that's like watching supercars.
But what's also great, one thing I really enjoy about IndyCar is because it's a spec series, it can come down to the driver on the day
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the team
absolutely.
getting things right. So you can have so many different winning drivers, which I would love to see in Formula One. Like, not spec series, but I would love that diversity of winning drivers.
I
That's
think
one thing I think Formula One lacks in a sense.
another thing that sort of puts me off IndyCar was when they drove at COTA for the first time.
Yeah, and they just don't know what track limits
Yeah,
are.
track limits just went completely out the window, and it just made them look like second-rate drivers.
It does, it makes them look bad. Yeah.
You
Yeah, but they
know,
don't have power steering. I wouldn't want to go through those last 2 corners.
Is there a reason why they don't have power steering? Because I would be happy for them to have it. Like, it's not like a cool thing. Like,
I think-
but we don't have power steering. Like, who cares? Just put power steering in. It's better.
yeah,
Like,
I think it's to keep the weight down or something. But
yeah, right.
yeah, I mean their cars are only generating 700 to 800 horsepower from a 2.2 liter V6 with a control turbo.
Yeah.
And in I
But
think-
they're every bit as quick at the top end as a Formula One car.
yeah, but they lose it in the handling.
Yeah, they won't get there the same way.
Whereas the Formula One cars have got 900 to 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
So with a 1.6 liter V6, a turbo, and the energy systems.
Well, as Romain Grosjean said, they are working on putting a kinetic energy system on the IndyCar.
Yeah, but it's going to be a different variation on it.
Yeah, but still, I think IndyCar will improve.
Yeah, it is getting better, but it does still feel like the B product. And I think if they want to get better, they'd have to start doing a couple of races outside of America.
Yeah,
I think they would have to, other than the Indy 500, you could keep that. I think they'd have to start to lose a lot of their oval racing, because I think people that, if you want to grow a sport compared to Formula 1 doesn't do oval racing.
Yeah.
You know, so the only way you're going to grow that is by separating yourself from NASCAR and acclimatizing more to Formula 1 by being circuit racing. You know, NASCAR's the oval racing.
I think
you
there's
know?
a place for oval racing there.
Yeah, NASCAR.
I think if they got rid of a few of the oval races and kept Daytona and Indy, it would make those two the spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they need to... I'm not sure if the Gold Coast is the perfect track to come back to for them, but if it means they come back to Australia, go for it.
They need to come back to Gold Coast. They do.
I think that they need to be on COTA right before the F1.
Yep.
Or go to Abu Dhabi.
Do you know what I think would be a great idea? I heard someone say this somewhere. I can't give them credit, but the talk was like a triple header in COTA for the MotoGP, IndyCar, and Formula 1. Either you do it all on the same weekend, or you do it like back to back to back in the month.
You have to do it back to back to back. There's no way you could fit all those in.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine
Yeah.
it. So yeah, but I think that would be a cool idea, is group them all back to back to back.
Yeah, that was the guy who he owns one of the IndyCar tracks.
Right.
I think he might actually be the guy who owns COTA.
Yeah, he might. I think he was a Texan, like he was from Texas, trying to promote COTA and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a bloody great idea. I think they should definitely do that.
See, I'd like to see IndyCar go on right before Formula 1 at COTA.
Yep.
Like, IndyCar does a race at COTA, and then they clear the garages, and F1 goes in and does the F1 race.
Yep.
I know it's a logistical nightmare, but something like that would give IndyCar even more exposure in other markets. But also, from the Australian perspective, watching IndyCar isn't, for lack of a better term, it's not as easy as watching F1.
Yeah.
Like, F1 is on Fox Sports, on Foxtel. But to watch
KO.
IndyCar, you've got to have Binge or KO or something.
Yeah,
It's-
you can't watch a race live unless it's somehow by some miracle on ESPN,
yeah.
which it never is.
So they're limiting their accessibility in outer
On a
markets.
global scale.
I think
Yeah.
they can learn lessons, though. I think that's a good opportunity for IndyCar to learn lessons now,
Well,
especially with some F1 guys going over there.
I think that something that would also help IndyCar is if they did a spin-off of Drive to Survive.
Hell
Drive
yeah,
to
look what it did
Survive
for
Indy.
Formula 1.
Yep.
It made it already international popular sport even more popular. You know?
Drive to Survive IndyCar, because IndyCar drivers are characters.
And they need
Yeah.
to start expanding. Why can't IndyCar go to Montreal? Why can't IndyCar go to Mexico?
Yeah.
If you don't want to go super international, you can still go to Canada and Mexico.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can still
go to Brazil.
America.
Go to
Yeah.
Interlagos even if you want to.
Into Lagos, come to Australia. I mean, we love our motorsport here in Australia.
Come back to the Gold Coast.
Yep.
People are already banging for
If
it.
not Gold
Scott
Coast,
McLaughlin was on the Gold Coast this weekend watching Shane Van Gisbergen wrap up
if
the
not
Supercars
at the
Championship.
Gold Coast, Townsville.
No, I want to
Or-
see them go
or,
back to the Gold Coast. Like, Gold Coast is their spiritual home here. And Scott McLaughlin was on the Gold Coast. Like, we can get IndyCar back to the Gold Coast. We can.
That'd be
I think that should be a destination.
I think that Anastasia Palaszczuk, our premier, should stop trying to spend $10 million to get the NRL Grand Final here 3 times out of 10 years, and invest that money in trying to get the IndyCar back.
Don't forget the Olympics.
Yes, because we got that, didn't we?
Yeah, Brisbane.
Yeah. Cool. I'll be avoiding Brisbane then.
Yeah, because we need it.
Yeah. So that's the news for this week.
That was a bit of a discussion. We went some pretty cool in-depth topics there.
Yeah. So now we're getting to the driver's standings. So I'm going to hand it over to JB.
Right, 2022 drivers standings after the Mexico City Grand Prix. World champion Max Verstappen, Red Bull's Max Verstappen, 416 points. Them gold numbers. In second, Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez, 280 points. In third, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, 275 points. In fourth, Mercedes is George Russell, 231 points. In 5th, Mercedes is Lewis Hamilton on 216 points. In 7th, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz, 212 points. In 8th, McLaren's Lando Norris, 111 points in 9th. Alpine's Esteban Ocon with 82 points in 10th. Alpine's Fernando Alonso on 71 points. And in 10th, Alfa Romeo's Valtteri Bottas on 47 points.
And we're going to hand it over to Longhorn to do the team standings.
The 2022 team standings after the Mexico City Grand Prix. We have Red Bull Racing on top with 696 points. Absolutely smashing it up there. In second, we have Scuderia Ferrari with 487. Followed closely behind by Mercedes with 447 points. In fourth, you have Alpine with 153. Followed very closely in fifth by McLaren with 146. In sixth, we have Alfa Romeo with 53. In seventh, we have Aston Martin with 49. In eighth, we have Haas with 36. In ninth, we have AlphaTauri with 35. And at the bottom in 10th, we have Williams with 8.
Dude, check those gaps.
Yeah.
There aren't any gaps anymore.
No, they're closing up. It's going to be an interesting little battle towards the end with a couple of teams.
They are very much closing up. McLaren's right on Alpine's tail now.
Yeah, they have a very good chance of retaking fourth in the...
Wasn't somebody's bold prediction that Alpine would hold us off for fourth?
It's still a possibility. There's only 2 races left.
There is only 2 races left.
I think I've said Mercedes would get second.
Yeah.
Slowly coming.
It's slowly coming. But, I mean, going back to the drivers, like, Sainz is now in 5th, behind both the Mercedes drivers. And
Yeah.
Leclerc has lost second to Perez.
That was the guy we tipped for the championship, remember?
Yeah.
Oof.
Sorry, Carlos.
Yeah, like, Ferrari's got to do something. They got 2 races, and they got to somehow try and get Carlos Sainz back and get Charles Leclerc up there, because they're going to lose second in the constructors to Mercedes at this rate.
They need to get Leclerc second. That's what they should be aiming for.
Whatever,
There's so many good battles.
whatever
Ferrari,
juice.
Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren, Alfa Romeo, and Aston Martin, Haas and AlphaTauri.
Exciting battle there between
They're all
Haas and
within
AlphaTauri.
like points of each other except Red Bull.
Yeah, they're all within one decent finish in a race.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it's going to come down to.
Right, so that was the Mexico City Grand Prix for 2022. The next race is in 2 weeks from Interlagos in Brazil,
Brasilia.
the home of Ayrton Senna.
The home of God.
No, that's Hockenheim. But anyway,
In the literal big Jesus statue.
I think you
Yeah.
will find actually the home of God's Montreal, Canada.
well, for
Go Tiffy.
Go Tiffy. Get
Sorry.
used to him. You got 2 more races with him.
I know.
Wouldn't it be funny if he replaces Schumacher at Haas?
Imagine that.
Yuck.
Oh,
No, there's no way it would happen.
just
No way.
I
I don't even know where Latifi goes from here.
Apparently, he's going to Le Mans, endurance racing.
Ugh.
Because
I,
I don't
suppose
think
he could do that. He can hang around at the back for a long time, so he's got a pretty good patience level, so he could do endurance for
Oh,
He's just looking after the tyres really well because he's 2 seconds a lap off the pace.
imagine him driving around Bathurst.
Slowly.
Yeah.
Gets
He's
half a lap.
He's in the medical car. That's
It's
about
on the
his
back of the
pace.
tow truck.
Yeah, he's driving he's the one in the Ford Ranger recovery vehicle
Oh.
blocking people out of pit lane. That's him.
Speaking of blocking people in pit lane, you can watch this show on YouTube. It was a great segue, wasn't it?
Was it Justin?
Yes, it was. I was just trying to figure out a way of getting to the segue. So you can watch this show on YouTube on the F1 Chat care of Vindicator 18 channel, but next year it will have its own channel. You can you can interact with us on Facebook on the F1 Chat. You can interact with us on Twitter, the F1 Chat 1.
Don't forget the one.
Thank you.
Elon Musk world.
Oh yeah.
He can try and ban me, but he won't.
You can watch the show on Rumble.
He's for free speech, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be right.
Yeah, right. Yes, we're on Rumble.
The F1 chat.
The F1 chat.
And we're on the Spotify as the F1 chat as well.
That's right. You guessed it. The F1 chat.
Yep, because, that's what we need. bit of innovation. We are the Williams of self-promotion when it comes to names. We're really just striving.
Well, we need to push
dire
it to the
need of
limit
help.
button, don't we, for our plugs?
Push the limit.
That's going to end up as the intro for the show.
It should be the outro. It should be seeing us out. That's what it should be.
Yeah, it needs to be like on the end of this.
Yeah.
No,
the full version
that's
of
the
that
end of
song.
the season episode. It's going to be us doing karaoke with the song. And put that as it tails out at the very end. That's.
Jesus.
I don't think he's got much to do with it. You can ask him if you want.
He won't have much to do with it after that.
No.
Done.
He left our space ages ago.
Disowned
don't worry.
us. Just disowned us. Right. So we're going to be back in 2 weeks with the Brazilian F1. And then we'll have 2 more episodes after that, including the season finale at Abu Dhabi.
I have
And
to do another sprint race for. Sorry, not a sprint. I have to do another F2 report.
yes, you
been a while.
do. Yeah, you got to remember. You'll have to go back
I
and
have to
listen
remember,
to the
eh?
Go back and listen to the old episodes.
Oh no, yeah. I was gonna say
Yeah,
I'll
back
rock
and
up
run.
and usually be like, and we're on to Longhorn for the F2 report. And I'm like, the what?
Yeah, hey, what?
Push it to the limit. Just legging out the door.
You gotta remember who's doing what, who's where.
Yeah. Hey, wait, what? Logan Sargent did what?
Yay
Who?
to Rufala.
Yeah.
Tio
Porche.
Puchier? Yeah.
you.
Jack Doohan.
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 I think his dad's someone. Does anyone know?
His dad was there.
Yeah.
He did the test for in FP1 for Alpine.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder if they've got him on a contract.
Yeah.
Jack
I like
Doohan's
it,
head
yes,
is
yeah.
massive, by the way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
He's got a fat head.
He almost doesn't need a helmet.
Yeah.
It is
It's-
its own helmet.
You just look at his head and like, man, you got a fat head. Your dad doesn't have a fat head. Where did that come from?
I seen the other week as well. His dad sold their Gold Coast mansion or whatever.
Really?
Yeah,
Mick Doohan's
yeah,
mansion?
yeah. It was a mansion on like the Gold
Is that to
Coast or something.
fund his F2 career?
Well, it had its own go kart track.
Damn.
So that's why I was like, well, that's how you get to like. That's how you become a driver. You just have lots of money.
That's
You
how he
can literally race go karts in
that's
your
it.
backyard every
That's
day.
how
his
he.
dad was royalty for.
I know that's what I mean,
Yeah.
but
That's how he could afford the paper used for the contract that Alpine hasn't gotten him to sign yet.
yeah, exactly right. But yeah, imagine having your own go kart track in your backyard.
I really wish I'd won Powerball last week. I would have bought that place.
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine having a go-kart track in your backyard.
Oh, it'd be magnificent.
Badass.
Yeah, but it's
I'd
in
have
the-
the little boy out
it's
there
in the
already.
Gold
now.
Coast.
It'd be in.
It's in the Gold Coast, one of the shittiest towns in Queensland,
Yeah.
according to shitty towns.
According
Of
to the
Australia.
I don't think
rankings.
Gold Coast is a shitty town when you're a millionaire. You sort of run the place.
Yeah. I don't think any town's shitty when you're a millionaire. You sort of run it.
I don't know, Townsville.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
one.
would.
That's-
I wouldn't have $100 million in the bank and be living in Townsville. I'd want to neck myself.
I was going to say impossible is just a word, but you just...
I don't know how Jonathan. I don't know how Jonathan Thurston lives there, to be honest.
I don't think he does, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's like he
flies
did
in.
all these commercials like, whenever I come to Mackay, I stay at the Ibis Hotel. He's never stayed there a fucking day in his life. He stayed at the Grand Suites. I should know because my kind of sort of little sister worked at the Ibis.
Yeah.
He never stayed there in his life.
He like pretends to live in
I mean,
Yeah,
Christ,
Townsville, but he
Yeah.
actually
Christ,
lives in
when
Brisbane.
Yeah, yeah.
Kiss played here in Mackay, they played. Everyone thought they were going to stay at the Ibis, the Grand Hotel. No, they got on a private jet and flew the fuck out straight after the show.
Of course they did.
They went to the bloody islands.
Yeah, of course they
They
did.
went to
Of course they
Hamilton
did.
Island and they crashed over there.
You can't rack lines in the Ibis.
Yeah.
What are you? Gotta rack
Watching
lines.
the 9:30 Qantas flight come in from Brisbane, like
You gotta rack lines.
They,
Gotta rack lines on Hamo like a real rock
they
star.
got on the Jetstar flight and flew over there.
Yeah.
Don't take Virgin, they'll break all their gear. Right. So, 2 weeks, Brazil, then Abu Dhabi,
Yep.
then season finale.
Whoop whoop.
whoop,
And then that'll be it for the year.
another year over.
And then we'll do a couple of retro races in the start of next year to
Warm up.
break in some news items that happen over the summer, or as the F1 winter.
The winter.
But thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode and us ranting and us sitting there going, push it to the limit. Limit. Until...
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. I was waiting for the words to come out. That just
See
didn't want to
y'all.
leave. But on behalf of JB and Longhorn and myself, thank you for tuning in. We will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, it is goodbye.